What's going on, world? It's your boy at Big Game James _36. And this is Big Games BS, a part of Den Media Groups, presented by AlphaClinicOnline.com. Alpha Clinic, really, I'm telling you, man, I'm trying to save a lot of people's pride and a lot of people's lives. A lot of y'all really portray this lifestyle, but we know that you suffer from low T and high E, or low testosterone, high estrogen. And I can tell by the way that you guys comment on things. And I'm trying to make sure that we have a more masculine world, more masculine energy. But it's not just for men, it's for women as well. Hormonal issues are something that's very, very true and trying, especially if you're over the age of 30 years old. All your levels start going out of whack as our body moves forward or past the reproductive stages in life. And I can get very scientific in it, even though I'm not a scientist. I just happen to hang around a bunch of doctors and a whole bunch of other stuff. Just like I'm not a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV, but I know a lot of them. And I also, game recognizes game. And I searched one. We got a special guest coming on. You guys have seen him on the show. He's a no through and through, but he's also I don't really care about that part. I just read his stuff and I'm like, damn, that makes sense. And a very, very wise person told me, if you can't explain complex things to the level of a fourth grade level, you really don't know it. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be scary. All it has to do is be where you can understand it. So again, let's get that testosterone levels correct. Let's get the estrogen levels out and the fear out of our system, and let's come on in here and do what we got and learn so that we can educate. That's my charge to keep with the community. I just like intelligent debate. I don't like the loud yelling and boisterous stuff. I want people to be able to spit facts. So we got Doug Rohan with Rohan Law. Follow him at Rohan, ROHANLAW on Twitter. Again, all this legal shit, you're going to understand it, and you're going to be the person that's going to go to the bar, and you're going to sound like you just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to law school. And they're going to be like, man, you should represent me in cases, and then you'll get paid. You'll fail, but at least you'll get paid, and that's capitalism working at its greatest. But while we're here, yes, I'm out of the country. I'm still trying to work. I have a problem. I like my job. I like working. I'll work until I die. Hell, when I had COVID, I was in the bed running the largest book bag drive that none of y'all have heard of. Raymond, we did Jags Talk yesterday. We're not talking about Jags right now. We're talking about FSU. But go to Alpha Clinic Online is what I was saying. If you tell them Big Game sent you, get your blood levels checked. You do not have to be in the state of Florida anymore. We are expanding. The Carolinas, I even told my dog was in Atlanta and some other places. Hey, bro, just tell them, James. Get Louisville, Kentucky. So just tell them Big Game sent you, you're going to be all right. Might as well do our housekeeping real quick. Pull up the first thing because I'm running blind. Don't even have my notes because that's the beauty of having a guest. I'm just going to let Doug talk about this very important thing, but there are some things that we need you guys to do. First and foremost, 420 is coming up. Is that the one we got? Yeah, 420 is coming up. Again, life is too short for bad weed, so make sure you get you some good weed, good cigars, good liquor. I won't have the weed for you, but I will have good cigars and good liquor at the tailgate of all tailgates. It is no longer $20. I need to change that. It's $40 because we're in the month of April, and I'm in the DR. You guys know what $40 gets you in the DR. Not for me, but for anybody else. $40 is $40. But go check that out. The proceeds from this goes to my book bag drives and stuff like that. You'll see former Seminole legends. If you haven't noticed the announcement, Peter Ward, Corey Simon are coaching one team. Tay Cody? That's it. Yeah, Tay Cody and Travis Minor are coaching the other side. Going to be great Seminole legends over there. So we won't have Pete at the tailgate, obviously. That has been at every freaking year that we've had it. So that's going to be sad. I'm still going to chop it over my dog on Friday, but please make sure you go check out the tailgate. If nothing else, we got to start learning to be in the city of Tallahassee. Make the city of Tallahassee electric on game day, and you'll start getting all the recruits. I'm telling you, it's real simple. Can't afford a ticket? It's not a problem. Come to the tailgate. Make everywhere a mass of people for these young men to be able to see, and even women, because it goes beyond. A good football team makes the university better, period. It makes more people want to come to it. So let's make our university proud and all that other stuff, starting with the spring game. And if you're As I told you, I'm a 3-6 Mafia member on the channel. Your tailgate ticket is covered. If you're all in and you're coming to the game, just let me know. All in, you get to experience the game the way I experience it. You'll be in Champions Club. You'll be doing all that other jazz, all that good stuff. So on the road to all of this stuff right here. The goal is right now that's inaccurate, but we'll just say that we're 500 away from 6,000. We need to get to 6,000 subs. The minute that we get to 6,000 subs, we'll be giving away $500 to a random member, not random member, excuse me, a random person watching Big Games BS. So it's an easy way to get $500. Just go click the damn like and subscribe, and then life becomes better for all of us. You get paid, YouTube pays me, life is better. $500. Then if you're a member, it means you're $3.99 and up. You get $100. There's a $100 giveaway for members only. And then there's the amount of likes. So we have $100 or we have 120 likes on the show while we're live. Somebody's getting 500, 120, and 100. So there's ways to get paid, all that jazz. Once we get to 7,000, I'm giving away a brick from Doak Campbell Stadium to somebody. So if you don't want to pay, I don't even know what it is for that cost for Battles In, but support Battles In. But if you don't want to pay that, then just get me to 7,000 subs, and I got that for you. I got you covered. I got the brick. It sounds so bad, but I got a lawyer, so he can understand. He can help me out here. I got bricks in the car, but not them. And I'm in the Dominican. Not them kind of bricks, but there are bricks in my car that are from Doak Campbell Stadium. So I got those for you with my truck. I got those for you. Also, once we get to 10,000 subs, I'm giving away a pair of season tickets to FSU home games this year, as well as a parking pass. Me saying thank you guys for growing the channel. So you don't want everybody bitching about how much the ticket prices are. Just subscribe to the channel, and you might be able to get 2 tickets. And my only requirement is that when I give these tickets to you, you gotta sit your ass in the motherfucking seats. Like, and if somebody else gotta go, I'll give it to them. But don't go out here trying to sell it. Like it ain't that kind of party. Yes, Primo, I'm in the Dominican. I'm not getting down like that, Luis. Like I'm literally eating fruit, drinking water, and looking at this gorgeous ass beach. I just left breakfast and brunch and talking to shout out to Coach Dirt. I like people who are direct and like get to the root of the problem. So Coach Dirt is a very energetic. I hate to say young man because that made me feel like I'm fucking 50 or something like that. But he's younger than me, and he talked to me. He's doing all these different things with South Florida Express, and he's sacrificing. He's coaching. I like that. Shout out to him. Very passionate, very very passionate. And he reminds me of some of my teammates. It might be a DB thing. Antonio Cromartie does it to me as well. He never asks, what are you doing right now? Are you in a position to talk? Just gets right to it. And I'm like, well, all right, this is what we're doing. We're talking. And nothing wrong with it. I'm like, he started talking to me. I'm like, hey, man, you are on my line. That's, I don't really know you like that. That's 25 cents a goddamn minute. You got an iPhone? Better hit me on the damn FaceTime. We can chat it up. But anyways, all that being said, those are the things. I don't have any more. That's our basic housekeeping things, right? Every day.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So now we can get into the nitty gritty. If you didn't know, or you're under a rock, but most of y'all know. And again, I'm gonna take this time again before I go into this. My people, when we have an interview, my colors get to ask questions and we get a response. The whites don't. It does not mean you have to understand and watch the channel to understand what that means. You're colored if you pay $3.99. That means you're a member. It shows up green on my chat. So I know you are important. If you are on Twitter and you try to respond, which a lot of you are going to watch because you're comfortable with it. I am not here to push you out of your comfort zone, but I need you to download the fucking YouTube app, go to Den Media Group, and watch the shit from there too. Watch it from both places. Elon doesn't pay bills. I don't even know who owns. Google does, and Google owns YouTube. So like, we need you to come over there. We will have a ton of you guys watching on X for whatever reason. I'm cool with that. Keep watching that shit, but just don't ask questions over there. We answer questions over here on YouTube, and you either got to be, what is that shit called? Super chat. Oh, you got to super chat it, or you got to be a greedy. So, or you got to be Kyle. And if Kyle comes in, Kyle gets to ask whatever the fuck Kyle wants to ask, because Kyle drops bread. So like if Kyle's listening, Kyle, you good. You don't have to necessarily. I would like you to drop a super chat, but you don't have to. But without Florida State, everybody made the fuss about what happened in North Carolina. We'll have some questions about what happened in North Carolina as it relates. We did not get the stay that we wanted, nor did we get the case dismissed, even though we did appeal to the Supreme Court. But basically, it looks like we're going to war in North Carolina with the ACC. The ACC basically tried to return the favor here in the state of Florida. It was a very, very long trial. It was video. It was all kinds of craziness. But instead of me trying to break this down, I've had Doug on when we first got into all of these different things. I also had Danielle Kelly, who's very good at this as well. We're going to bring it more because that's the pressing news of the matter as it relates to not just Florida State. This case will probably set precedent when it comes to the other conferences. Two conferences probably won't have anything, any issues. That's the Big Ten and the SEC. You know why? Because they're handling their fiduciary responsibilities. ACC isn't. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring Doug up. Might as well bring Doug up, and we're gonna chop it up. Very entertaining about law. This will be a special Law and Order edition of Big Games BS. Wow, what's going on, Doug? How you living, man? How's your morning?
James, how's it going?
It's going
Congratulations on the subs. That's very exciting.
I like the FSU homer thing. It was just, listen, multiple things can be true at the same time. You could be an FSU homer and to the hell, a lot of people, before I get, is John Cooper, is he an FSU grad or is he just, we didn't get that?
I don't know. Oh, Judge Cooper?
Yeah.
Double null. So he went to undergrad and law school at Florida State. So he's a double null.
He could be a homer, but he can also be ready for the truth as well. Multiple things can be true at the same time.
But yeah, I was going to say congrats on the subs. Next time I'm in Tally, we'll get some box pressed Maduro wrap Perdomos and sit back and relax and celebrate your success.
Hey, man, listen, I appreciate that. Any chance to smoke cigars, I'm going to do that. I love that. Are you coming to the spring game?
I'm not, because of everything that's been going on with this litigation and some other travel plans that I've got out to Denver. I'm just not going to be able to make it down there for the tailgating. But you made a great point too, and I wanted to bring that up also before the law talk. Make Tallahassee fun. Make Tallahassee exciting. Look, Miami, I'm not going to lie, they've got boats and bikinis, and there's a lot of good things that draw 17 and 18-year-old males down to Miami as recruits. We've got to make Tallahassee as exciting. That's why I'm so excited about College Town, everything they've done there with the renovations and the campus. But you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that Tally is hopping as well whenever we have the chance to get together.
Let me tell you, it's fun. It's an incredible city when you're winning. I mean, now Gaten Street, where College Town is, that was run down when I was in college.
I wasn't allowed to walk home without one of my fraternity brothers down Gaten Street after a party.
And Tennessee Street was popping. It's not as popping anymore, but like it's a Tallahassee, especially when both teams are winning, FAMU and Florida State, but in particular Florida State, when they're winning, man, I don't give a damn what anybody says in Miami. Like Miami's cool and everything, but like it's expensive. It's a whole bunch of other stuff. Tallahassee is dope. So, but yeah, man, that's good stuff. So you were in speaking of your travels, you were in North Carolina, basically treating that like a sporting event. What was that like? And kind of let's do as brief of a summary as you can to why we're here today, and I'm kind of just going back in time.
So it's best to go backwards chronologically, and you did a good job. Yesterday, we had the Leon County hearing for the litigation, which is FSU versus the ACC that was filed in Florida after the Board of Trustees meeting. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we had a hearing in North Carolina, which was the ACC filing against Florida State the day before the Board of Trustees hearing. And so we have 2 competing lawsuits in 2 different states over essentially the same thing. Now, there was a contrast in styles. I wasn't in Tallahassee, but I did get to watch the live stream of the hearing yesterday. And this is where I can take off my FSU homer hat and be a little bit more objective. I much preferred the process in North Carolina versus what we got yesterday in Tallahassee. If I was one of the attorneys in the Tallahassee case, I was glad the judge ruled from the bench, and that's a positive. Everybody gets to the finish line faster. But first off, in North Carolina, the judge was like, this was going to be an hour for each side, granted an extra 10 minutes here and there where it needed. I'm going to sit down and take my time to create my order over the next 10 days. And then he issued it on the day on Thursday when we expected him to issue his order, and everything was organized and wrapped up in a bow with all of his thought process. Yesterday, the judge thought we might go an hour and a half to 2 hours per side. We ended up going almost 8 hours, and he's just rambling from the bench, giving his thoughts and stream of consciousness. And then it's on the burden of the winning party to reduce everything the judge said verbally to a written order, which I don't know if it's going to be 1 page, 2 pages, or 10 pages. But the judge was throwing in a lot of case law. And ultimately, to get to the bottom line for us today, you have 2 judges that both think it should be in the case should be in their courtroom. They have different reasons for coming up with that conclusion. But the North Carolina judge Bledsoe said this is a North Carolina case. A Florida judge Cooper said this is a Florida case. And so now we're stuck waiting to see kind of what's next.
So let's say we get to the situation where we go to trial in North Carolina, and then now he says he's throwing out the stay, but he didn't throw out the dismissal. Well, let's say, because I think he's going to throw out the dismissal as well. Both these cases are here. Does it go to federal, or do they literally have to basically have war on 2 different fronts?
So the first step is the Court of Appeals for each state. Florida State, in the middle of the hearing yesterday, filed and was submitted their petition for the North Carolina hearing to be appealed to the North Carolina Court of Appeals. I presume that after the order is signed and issued in this case, that the ACC is likewise going to appeal this to the Florida Court of Appeals. That'll take a couple weeks, if not months, and then we'll have to see if those 2 courts also simultaneously agree. If they do, then the parties can ask that this case be removed to federal court. But we have a timing issue there, a technical issue, and that's typically within 30 days of the order that the request needs to be made for removal. We're not going to have these final orders, these final decisions from the courts of appeal inside of 30 days. So that's one thing where both parties may need to go ahead and ask for removal now. But there is some conflict there. There is not a guarantee that that's the route we're going to take. I've asked several attorneys. Some have said we have what's called diversity jurisdiction, which means we have 2 different courts in 2 different states fighting over the same thing. Other attorneys that I've talked to have said, no, this doesn't qualify for diversity jurisdiction because both parties do business in the opposing state. So federal court is not appropriate because we don't have complete diversity. But in asking those same attorneys, okay, well, if it's not federal court, what's next? Those attorneys don't have an answer. So that to me tells me, okay, you've heard this thing in law school and I've heard the same thing. But if you're not telling me what the alternative is, I'm going to stick with my original thought, which is a federal judge needs to decide which state it's going to be held in. Because we cannot, the one thing I do know is we will not have 2 competing trials in 2 separate states, or a third state if South Carolina gets involved. We won't have the same trial held in all 3 different states over the same issue.
So if Clemson does, well, they already did that. But so would Clemson, would it be Clemson and Florida State versus the ACC on a federal level, or would it be 2 different federal cases?
So right now, Clemson is 4 months, 3 months behind us on the timeline. One possible realistic scenario I could see play out, and this is 6 months from now, is that Judge Bledsoe in North Carolina has consolidated all 3 cases to be heard in North Carolina. That's one practical, reasonable solution to this issue of multiple states with multiple cases. Now, that would normally require the consent of Clemson and Florida State. I don't think they're going to give that. So then it has to be ordered. Well, who is it going to be ordered by? A Florida judge cannot order a party to go to Clemson or to North Carolina. South Carolina judge can't order somebody to go to North Carolina, but both courts of appeals could say, no, this is not appropriate in Florida. And unfortunately, I don't think that that's where the case law is going. But that would be the only way to get to that point traditionally. So the Florida Court of Appeals has to say, Judge Cooper, you're wrong. And based on yesterday's hearing, I don't know that if Court of Appeals is going to be able to say that Judge Cooper is wrong.
Yeah, because he brought up a lot of really good points. And I think one of the things that I love about law is obviously it's not always black and white. There is obviously gray. But we didn't talk about this in terms of Florida State or people or things. We talked about this in terms of property and ownership of different things. And he kept harping on how can you have control over something in the state. How can you think that property in the state of Florida needs to be litigated in North Carolina? And I think if I remember correctly, he brought up like if you own something in another state where somebody lives, but you live here, you're not going to try it in another state. Actually, even before we get to that, you brought up the different styles. Is that common with Coach? Well, not, I was going to say Coach Cooper. I actually know a Coach John Cooper. Shout out to fifth quarter. But is it common for what Coach Cooper? What Coach Cooper did, Judge Cooper, is that common to be able to actually make it? It's almost like I don't want to say this to disrespect him because he's a judge, but it almost felt like when I'm reading this stuff, it's more like he was the lawyer at times. Is that common?
Yeah, you have different styles from every judge that you appear in front of. That's why there's value. And a quick plug for people who might be looking for attorneys: find the attorney that plays golf with one of the judges or one of the judge's assistants on Sunday. It's not because you're going to get a better ruling necessarily, but you want an attorney that intimately knows all of the personalities and all of the styles of the judges assistants, secretaries. I get birthday gifts for my judges' assistants. You need to know who you're dealing with. That doesn't necessarily translate into wins, but at least it sets you up for a better chance to win. It's like a baseball player scouting the opposing pitcher. What kind of pitches does he like to throw? Let me be prepared. So judge's style does matter. Knowing the judge's style does matter. And frankly, that's one of the huge reasons why we're doing this forum shopping that the judge was talking about. The ACC lawyers know the North Carolina judges better. We know the Florida judges better. So you want to have that tactical advantage to the extent possible. But yes, the style the judge had yesterday is a very common style, an aw shuck style. I was mentioning on Twitter that it was kind of like a Columbo style, if you like that 70s show. But the bottom line is you do have different styles from different judges. And this was a very casual, informal approach that Judge Cooper took to the hearing yesterday.
That's wild. So it's kind of like a business. Like I always joke with people, pillow talk matters. When I'm going to conferences or stuff like that, especially when I'm doing some government things or when I'm doing military, I always talk to National Guard, so I do have contracts with. The tag is the guy who's over. Luckily, our tag in the state of Florida is a Florida State grad, and he gets a brick because he likes Florida State. Smart for me to make sure I stay having. Anybody ever dealt with government contracts, but man, let me tell you, I hate government waste like any good Republican. I love government waste like any good Republican when it comes to me. So waste the money, overspend on it. But it's the wife. You got to get to the wife and find out who the wife likes and what her things are. And then you impress her. The next thing you know, they're laying in bed. I sure did like that James fella. He is really, really good. You should be nice to him. Doesn't guarantee I'm going to get the contract, but it damn sure doesn't hurt. So I didn't realize that that happens. But it makes sense. Makes sense. So with that, before we get into specific questions, overall, what do you feel like Florida State gained or lost when it came to this? And what did the ACC gain or lose when it came to this?
Well, it was definitely a win for Florida State. There's no question about that. Nobody can argue otherwise. Florida State wants this case to stay here in Florida. Favorable Florida judge granted Florida State what they wanted. Now, this was a very limited issue, very limited order This is related to the ACC's motion to stay. That's all that they got through yesterday. They have more hearings scheduled for April 22nd on the motion to dismiss, on the motion to stay discovery. I didn't even touch those two issues. Again, dealing with the efficiency of the North Carolina court that did make it through all the issues in a half day. So what was the order of Judge Cooper yesterday is, I'm not going to slow this train down. This case is moving forward, and it's moving forward in Florida. Now the question is, will there be a motion to dismiss? I think somebody was asking on Twitter why the judge took it in this order, in the way he did it. I think this was the simple answer. The stay was the first and most pressing issue, and it had the lowest threshold for a decision. It was easiest for him to go and say, this needs to stay in Florida. Now, a motion to dismiss, it's a very high threshold to dismiss something. That's why the North Carolina dismissal of the ACC's claim that Florida State owed a fiduciary duty was a big deal. When you have a motion to dismiss, the judge already has to assume everything in the pleadings is correct. So there's no finding of fact. There's no determination as to which party is correct. We're just saying, okay, if you put everything in this paper that says A, B, and C, I have to presume A, B, and C is true. Do we get to a claim? So that's the next issue the judge needs to decide, and it's going to be an easy determination that no, we're not going to dismiss any of the counts. And then the second issue for the April 22nd hearing is the discovery issue. Should discovery continue? So I think the reason why he did it this way is because he knew he didn't want to grant the stay. This case is moving forward. Now we can get to the motion to dismiss. He can either just deny it outright, or he gave a clue yesterday and suggested that maybe this is more of a summary judgment issue, and we'll get into why that's different in a second. But then once he denies the motion to dismiss, he can move straight into the discovery issue and say, this case is moving forward in Florida. I'm not dismissing the case. Now I'm going to grant, or I'm going to deny your motion to stay discovery. We need to start discovery. That relates back then to the motion for summary judgment, where the judge can say, I want to hear the information first. Let's actually do some discovery. Let's exchange some information. And that's where the motion for summary judgment then comes up. Okay, we've done discovery. We've actually looked at the information. The judge now has the right, without it going to a jury yet, to say, let me look at this information in its totality. If there's not a jury question, if there's not a question of fact here, I can just rule that the summary judgment is granted and this case is dismissed. That's one possible scenario. Again, it's a very high standard to win on a motion for summary judgment. I would not expect that to be the case here.
So going back, because a lot of the things that I've seen when I've gone on the places to talk about this, and again, today, if you guys are, I like legal dramas. It's one of my favorite things in the world. Suits is a great show. Mm-hmm. Law and Order. Hell, I came up when, for anybody, when Court TV basically hit the lottery with the O.J. Simpson case. So, I remember what that summer was like. It was amazing. Johnny Cochran was dope. I just forgot the guy. He had a movie. Jamie Foxx played this attorney in a movie recently. I was actually hanging out with that guy, the attorney he played. I was actually hanging out with his son in West Palm Beach, which was kind of cool. Because then I went back and watched some of the movie, and then I looked, even though it's Jamie Foxx acting, but he's acting like the guy. And then I remember, okay, well, the son has some of these manners, so maybe Jamie Foxx did a better job than I thought. But there's a lot of people who oppose all of this. They oppose all lawsuits. I get it. There's a lot of frivolous lawsuits, but what grounds does Florida State have here in the state of Florida, and what grounds did North Carolina have to even come about this? And what you just said is very difficult to throw out. This, why is it so difficult to throw something out? I know what I was told when I went through my things, but as an attorney, can you explain
Sure.
What would Florida State have needed to show in North Carolina to get it completely thrown out, and what would the ACC needed to show in the state of Florida to get it thrown out as it relates to what you know in law?
Let me start off by being very clear and saying these cases have been very typical. This is standard procedure. There's nothing unusual or outside the norm for either of these cases. What that means then is you have to understand every complaint that gets filed, 98% of the time, the other side files a motion to dismiss. So that is typical. And a motion to dismiss standard, again, what I was mentioning was you presume everything is true. Okay, you said a bunch of BS. Let's going to presume everything you say is true. We laughed out loud when the ACC claimed the FSU owed a fiduciary duty to the conference. That's contradicting the bylaws. That's contradicting the Constitution. That is how high the standard is for a motion to dismiss. If you say everything in that claim is true, you still can't overcome the reality that that's not a thing. That doesn't happen. So if you file a complaint and say the sky is purple, you're going to get that claim dismissed because the sky is not purple. It's blue or gray, depending on the sunset, of course. But that's where the lawyers get in. We can start arguing the technicalities of, well, for 17 minutes at the sunset, with the sun hitting at this angle, you can get a purple hue in the sky. That's the example of the idiocy that is the law in general. So what should or could the parties have shown? They need the law to be different. They need the facts to be different. If there was I can't, that's a great question. I haven't thought of it from that angle. What could have been the fact pattern that let the ACC dismiss the Florida claim? Okay. Let's say the statute or the legislature came up with a statute that said, regarding NCAA conference affiliations, all matters are held and heard in the conference headquartered locale. If that statute existed, that would be the type of basis that this Judge Cooper could then point to and say, the legislature's already made a law. Anytime we're fighting about a conference issue, it automatically goes to the conference headquarters in North Carolina. We don't have that law, but that's the type of thing that would have been necessary for there to be a slam dunk at this very early preliminary stage in the case.
That goes back to something you said on the previous show that you're on with me. Had they just put it in the fucking in the fucking bylaws of GOR, that any kind of thing that happens, it will be handled. Because you can put this, you can, no matter if you disagree with some things in the contract, you can essentially lay out the terms of engagement if you were to get to something. It's kind of like in business. When I got one of my partners, the lawyer who set up our business said, okay, how do you want to, when this dissolves, how do you want this to dissolve? And I'm like, well, it's not. She's like, it's basically a prenup for your business. How do we clean it up now, make it good while you like each other? Exactly. So that when you don't like each other, it's like not. So that's kind of what it is, right?
And here's another tidbit that I've learned since that conversation. So we were talking about what idiots, and these are high-powered attorneys with lots of experience. And we thought that they failed or left out a provision called the choice of law provision. A lot of contracts, when you're dealing with multi-states, you put in the contract, if there's a problem, like you said in the prenup, we're going to resolve this in X state. I thought that they messed up by leaving it out and forgetting to put that in, which is pretty bad. That's a bad thing. Well, it turns out they actually crafted the ACC grant of rights off of the Big 12 grant of rights, which does have a choice of law provision. So they not only didn't include it, they made the conscious choice to remove that paragraph from the ACC's grant of rights. To me, that's unconscionable. Somebody needs to be sued for malpractice.
Wow, that seems to be so, like everything in this seems to be like there's somebody who just really, really, really messed up.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to kind of come back to it. Like, so basically, if I sued up, I could throw out a lot of different things, and the judge has to assume it. What the only way you can get it dismissed is to make it so clear that there was nothing that you could have possibly done to me to make me want to sue, which is kind of difficult.
It is. It's very difficult, which is why, again, we have to temper our response to these first two hearings. On a Richter scale, this is a 1.2 or a 1.3. They're good wins. They're interesting wins. I love getting into the weeds about them, but the judge has not made any determination about any of the details of the case in chief. whether or not there was a breach of fiduciary duty, whether or not there was a breach of contract. All those issues still remain unresolved. Right now, we're just fighting over whether we're going to play a home game or an away game.
And that was what I was going to say. It even simpler basically we're over here betting or giving commentary over the coin toss.
Mm-hmm.
So like very early on in the stages, no touchdowns have been scored. Nobody has put any drives together. Nobody's gotten any interceptions. Now that discovery could be a hell of a win, but again, we'll know more about that April 22nd.
Correct.
And as they go to those things. So, but it's interesting that you brought up something that I wasn't even aware of, and I'm not sure other people were aware of, is the two contrasting styles in which we had. I honestly am with you. I don't like one of my pet peeves is wasting my time, and I don't like court at all. Any of this stuff. When I did a deposition once, it wasn't even the lawyer was asked who's deposing me, but I wanted to choke him from wasting 3 hours of my life. And I think, and from what I was told, mine was a shorter deposition than what a lot of people have been through. They're like 3 hours ain't nothing. I was like 3 hours to me is you might as well waterboard me. That's an eternity. But I actually, from what you're telling me, I actually prefer what the North Carolina judge did because they were able to get a lot more accomplished because they put time limits. Even though I also see the benefits of what Cooper did, especially from an entertainment perspective, by making people have to flesh things out. And with him discussing this, like he's in it, like there's a lot of trippy things that he tripped up even the ACC attorneys, which I love. I wouldn't want to do it to you, Doug, but I love tripping up attorneys because you're doing to them what they did to you. And
here's a great opportunity to get into something that I wanted to mention and educate your viewers on. And you made a great point at the opening intro where you talked about going to the bar and being an intelligent converser of the facts that are going on. Let me say, I don't know that I'm directly responsible for it. Danielle Kelly's done a great job, Chanta Combs, a couple other attorneys, but I have been thrilled with the level of understanding that is evident within our fan base as you see these discussions on Twitter. Almost everything I'm seeing is correct, is accurate. Nobody's going too far off the rails. And when they do, oftentimes before I can even correct them, somebody else is correcting them based on something we've already talked about. So as a point of pride, I just have enjoyed where the discussion has been about a very complicated issue. Now, with that, I wanted to introduce a new thing that really Judge Cooper yesterday, I think, brought up the need to discuss, and I wanted to spend a few minutes sharing it to make sure everybody else understands as well this point. But it's all this discussion about case law. There was a lot of what we talked about yesterday in case law. And so I wanted to make sure that we understood exactly why that is important and why it's relevant, because it's going to enhance the understanding and knowledge of what happens in the cases going forward. So if you're arguing in front of a judge, in this case, we're talking about the Second Circuit of Florida and Leon County, your best and strongest arguments are based on prior cases. So most things aren't happening new for the first time. We have a long history. All of these cases are recorded or reported, and that's why you have these citations, so you can go back and find these other cases that have been decided by the courts of appeal and the Supreme Court. There's an idea in law, stare decisis. You want to follow the precedent of the cases before. That gives the attorneys the way to educate their clients over what is likely to happen. It's not a guarantee. It doesn't happen all the time. The Supreme Court of the United States sometimes changes the overall thinking. That's how we've made through some significant social revolutions in this country related to race, related to women's rights, things like that. So we don't always follow precedents, but in general, you want to follow what the prior case decision was. So if I'm arguing in front of Judge Cooper in the Leon County, I want to find another Judge Cooper case that had similar facts to refer back to. Well, it's very unusual your same judge will have your same kind of case because it's just too unusual to make sure the facts are the same. So let me find another judge in Leon County that had the same set of facts. That's the next best idea. Well, if you don't have another judge in Leon County, okay, let's go down to a Dade County court. It's a different circuit. Ideally, you want to stay within the same circuit, and I'm not familiar enough with Florida to know which other counties are involved in the Second Circuit, but there's 5 or 7 circuits in Florida. So let's look to other Florida circuits for decisions based on the facts. So now what happens is you might get different opinions, different results, but maybe these facts are a little bit different or these facts are a little bit different. Then what we're talking about is distinguishing your case from the facts of another case. So that's the circuit, the way the judges are looking at it, and you're looking at Florida. If you don't find something in Florida circuits, you want to go to the Court of Appeals. The Supreme Court is the ultimate authority. So a Supreme Court case decision out of a Leon County case is the best of precedents that you can have if your facts are similar. But we get paid to discuss why the facts are not similar in those cases that don't apply to us. I'll briefly throw in here the Troy decision, Alabama. In North Carolina, the argument from the ACC was Troy University was a entity that could be sued in North Carolina because they had a registered agent. A registered agent is who accepts lawsuits. So you have an opportunity to receive lawsuits in North Carolina because you have a registered agent. Florida State tried to distinguish the case saying Florida State hasn't registered in North Carolina. We don't have a registered agent. We don't accept lawsuits in North Carolina. The judge said, no, we're not reading that into the case law in Troy. All we're saying is that's an example of business interest. You have a business presence when you file. We're not requiring you to file as a registered company. We're not requiring you to have a registered agent, but that's an example of why Troy could be sued. Florida State, you're also doing business through the conference in North Carolina. So the judge applied that precedent and that set of facts to make it a North Carolina case in his decision. Well, what Judge Cooper is doing here, which is unusual and something that might be a bit of a stretch, is we don't have a Leon County case. We don't have a Florida case. We don't have a Court of Appeals case. We don't have a Supreme Court case. He's going to federal cases. Well, federal cases are now several steps removed from a Leon County case. That's not ideal. And a step further, he's not even going to federal civil cases. He's going to federal patent cases. So if there's a problem with the rationale and with the logic and with the force of the decision of Judge Cooper, it's that he got very outside the box to find case law that supported what he wanted to conclude. And that's why the attorneys, to get back to your original point, were getting tripped up, because nobody had been doing research on patent law to try to figure out whether or not this was going to be a valid Florida case. So the judge was way out in left field. The attorneys on both sides were not prepared because they had not briefed or researched those cases. And that's why it looked a little bit sloppy yesterday.
Which I could see the stretch. I could also see damn, I'd rather have him as my damn attorney than the judge. I would have never thought to go the patent route, but I can see the stretch. But I can also see where, okay, just like him talking about property, we're not looking at this as we're looking at this as property. Like Florida State in and of itself could be deemed an invention. Like if a patent, we have to have trademarks.
Yep.
We have certain things that we are. So there are things that we have as a university that you have to have with a patent as well. But I can also see what you're saying. Damn, I'm coming in here thinking this. It's like I'm coming in prepared to play Duke, and then Miami in the early 2000s shows up, and they're like, whoa, this is completely different. We had a question from Mike Hall. We were going in a good thing, so I didn't want to interrupt this.
And I will apologize to you. I've got about 5 minutes, and then I've got to hop on off conference call. If you want to come back, if you're engaged and you've got a lot of questions on there, after about a 10-minute break, I can come back.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, we'll see what other stuff. I want to answer this question with Mike Hall real quick, because he did ask this, and this was a big important thing. Who can sign and all these different things. But Mike Hall said, Doug, can you touch on the Board of Trustees stance that they are a third party separate from FSU as it pertains to litigation and ratifying the GOR? So
there is a statute, and actually we brought it up on the show. It is a statute within Florida codes that say the ratifying party to any contract involving a state university school is the Board of Trustees. And so what that means is the Board of Trustees is the only authority that can bind a party to a contract. In our case here, we have the president signing these agreements, these amendments. And so there is some hay to be made that the president didn't have that authority. Well, there's two problems with saying that. And this is an example of why just because it's in the statute and just because it's in the law doesn't really necessarily mean what you think it means. The first problem is what's called agency. The language in the paperwork that the president signed has an entire paragraph that says, I, as the president, have the authority to sign this contract. I've gotten approval from the members that need to approve it. I have the right to ratify this contract as the authority for Florida State. So first, the president is signing saying, forget that statute. I have the authority. I am the authority. I've made sure I have the authority. And a president is not nobody. It's usually a pretty sophisticated business person. I would expect them to read the contracts. I would expect them to follow those contracts. And I would expect them to have called up the Board of Trustees and say, hey, we don't have formal minutes on this, but can I go ahead and sign this agreement? That's likely what happened, and that's why this is still a ratified contract. The second issue is, okay, let's assume the president didn't read it. Let's assume the president just signed it without knowing what was in there. Let's assume the president went rogue and didn't want to and didn't tell anybody about this grant of rights. Well, if 11 days pass or 11 weeks pass, and the university finds out about this contract and says, whoa, no, we don't want anything to do with that. We want to follow Maryland and get out of this contract. Then you can say, okay, you didn't have the authority or you didn't have the agency. You can't go 11 years under this agreement and now say you didn't have the authority to do that. You've given up. You are stopped from making that argument because, and that's where the argument is, you've accepted all this money over all these years. Yes, we've accepted all this money over all these years. The president signed and we are bound to that grant of rights. There are other arguments that are better, but that's where that whole issue comes in.
And it's kind of funny too, when we even use that, because in the state of Florida, you want contracts, right? You need a contract.
Sure.
But it's kind of like what happened with Willie Taggart when they tried to go, somebody said he didn't sign this contract, but we paid him. And in the state of Florida, if you act as if you have the contract and there's proof that, whether it's on a sheet of paper or not signed, but he says, I coach game, you pay me $5 million, you have a contract. You have literally acted in it, whether you signed or not, and it's very hard to trip that up. I do know that much. So that's, again, as you stated so eloquently, is that when you're putting this stuff, you just throw a bunch of shit out there, and the judge has to assume that that most of this is true. And you can't, if there's 20 points, it's damn near impossible that you're going to be able to go and knock out all 20. You only need a few of them to be true in order to move forward. ACC tried to use that we owe them a fiduciary responsibility. We tried to say somebody signed a contract 11 years ago that we didn't know anything about, but we've taken this money for 11 years. I guess so I can see that's an excellent point, because I've seen a lot of people talk about that. But now we know why that's probably one of the weaker arguments that Florida State has, which is fair, and that's actually that gives us more credibility, though. So we can't just say we won everything. We have to at least be able to say people who can admit when they fucked up, you tend to trust and believe them a little bit.
And there's a second layer to the question also that was also brought up. The idea of the Board of Trustees was saying, yeah, maybe our commissioner or president is going to North Carolina, but we as the Board of Trustees are not going to North Carolina. We as the Board of Trustees stay here in Florida. We as the Board of Trustees, as the basis for the litigant party, don't have those ties and connections to North Carolina. And again, I don't believe that's a winning strong argument. You as the Board of Trustees are operating in a way that represents the university, and you send off the president as an envoy to these parties, you're one and the same.
Well, I know you said you had a call that you got to take, and you're going to be doing a lot of shows today. So I don't want to take any thunder away from anybody else. A lot of those guys are a lot smarter than me. So they're going to probably ask you way better questions. So guys, make sure you follow Doug and all the different things that he's doing. Danielle Kelly, and a couple other guys are doing the Lord's work, making sure that we all know a lot. Doug Miles said he's a little disappointed in you because Miles is my producer, because he said you have a mean bow tie game. And last time you came on, down in your defense it's 10:30, and it's 5 o'clock somewhere. But when you came on the show last time, there you see him, Miles, he's got it. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, but you had some really, really good. I think you had bourbon last time. So I'm not telling you have to have your coffee, your bourbon. So yeah, but don't want you to. If you start drinking at 9:30 when we started, it's gonna be a hell of a day.
The Dominican Republic. I wish I was. All right, Dame. We'll be in touch.
All right, appreciate you. We'll have you on later.
Sounds good. Bye.
Am I? Right? But cool, man. We had some good dialogue going into that. So again, 8 fucking hours. Jesus Christ. I could not be in one. I don't even like sleeping 8 hours uninterrupted, let alone sitting down somewhere for 8 hours where I'm getting talked to. But we had and I like to think I want to give one person, even though he's not a colored, meaning he's not a member, not that he's white. And I actually appreciate you, Adam. I love people with their actual pictures, or even if it's AI. That's not AI. I think that's handsome guy right here, Adam Brock. I was trying to find the name, and I couldn't. I had the last name, but I was thinking Gary was his first name. Willie Gary was the attorney that I was talking about, and that's whose son I was hanging out with on a boat this time last week. I need to stop saying stuff like that, because you guys would probably think that my life is a vacation. It's kind of the way that things lined up. But yeah, that was basically the big news. I don't really want to, because if I have to do it, if I have to go through the stuff that I was going to send Miles, now we'll be here for another hour and a half. A lot of things happen. I just summarize it. We already talked about Don Stanley. Real quick, did anybody watch the UConn Purdue basketball? You talk about exciting whites. That shit was crazy. Like, the white boy that just dumped it off the tip. That was wild. That was wild, man. Them boys was balling. I don't think the big centers are going to be great in the NBA, but some of those guys, were the UConn, and that UConn coach. I hope he stays at UConn. Kentucky offered him a bag, but I hope he stays at UConn. I like that UConn coach. I wanted to talk about that, but we're not going to get. He got some sauce. I like chippy coaches that become personalities. That's why the women's game right now is better than the men's game. You got players that you can relate to that are good. You got coaches that are iconic. That UConn coach is probably the most iconic guy that they got, unless Kentucky brings back Billy Donovan. But yeah, it's just a lot of stuff, man. Polo Kids, you're right. That's what I was trying to figure out. I couldn't think of it. But he when George Mirasan, one of the people that the Monstars took their game from, he was looking like one of the Monstars. And now some of y'all who are in this, you didn't get a chance to enjoy the original Space Jam. That's the only thing that I love about MJ. Sean Brad, even worse. Oh God, that's right, it was Sean. Brought me back. This is Jay-Z bar for everything. You ain't an athlete, you Sean Bradley, and I ain't talking about nobody in particular. My flow's like vehicular homicide when I'm kicking up dust. My bad, sorry. It's just me. Pump it up freestyle is what I came. But I can recite rap lyrics better than I can recite people's names, by the way. But nah, man, outside of that, really, really, really good information. We're just gonna keep it. So that this show called this Law and Order FSU versus the ACC. But again, my whole thing with the whole concept of the channel, the whole concept of the different shows is to have fun, relax, but also have intelligent debate. There's too much of people not not necessarily understanding complex issues and what they talk about. And I see it on a day-to-day. But right now, what we have is opportunities to bring people in to be able to discuss things from the ground level, be able to explain it to you so that you in turn can go have intelligent discourse, because that's really what sports radio is all about. It's not about just listening to quote unquote experts. It's so you can take our ideas and go back and communicate it to other people. And that's why media is a responsibility and also a powerful, powerful medium. Like it is, like we have to ask for more, and we have to encourage more. And life is about more than just trolling. So I tell people I don't get paid to troll. It may sound like I'm trolling, but I'm really more so just spitting facts. And I try not to talk about anything that I don't know about. So, and if I don't know it, I know somebody who does know. So with that being said, man, I appreciate all you guys coming up on here and chopping it up with me while I'm gone. Again, 153 people right now on Big Game James _36 on X. Over 20 on SportsDen _live, which we have to get that more active. Even that is the main page. So please, right now, if you guys get a chance that are listening, go follow on Twitter, on X and IG at SportsDen _live. I need y'all to come on over here to Den Media Group. Just tap the like button, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and let us get to these goals that we want to be able to get. Check out Renegade Report. Check out Chris with Sporadics. Renegade Report and Chris with Sporadics. We will be on Mark Rogers tonight at 6 o'clock. Also, I have a special Dope Boys Chop It Up with Crefonzo Thorpe. And that should be airing at 3 p.m. It'll be live, the same way everything else is. So, guys, please come and join it, especially if you like the talks that we've done before. I've done we've done Lorenzo Booker, Xavier Lee, Matt Myrod, Travis Johnson, Tony Carter. It was the last one. I hope I'm not missing anybody. All great stories. We'll have Crow on. We'll have I got some other guys in tow that line up, and we're going to try to be bringing those once a week. Trying to catch. The reason why I'm doing so many back-to-back now is I'm trying to catch up, because we've been off due to travel and due to different things. But I'm really excited to talk to Crefonzo, catching up, because again, that's really what it is. We're going to catch up. We're going to talk about different stories that you guys may or may not have heard of, and also bring context to things. I'm definitely going to talk to him. And we're going to talk about that Notre Dame game. Ooh, but I tell you, I'm not here to I don't knock people's religion, but I'm saying if Catholicism was like the way, God should have smited us. That's how disrespectful we were that game and leading up to the game. It's the only game I've ever gone into where I thought, man, we might get our ass whooped. We are not focused enough. We were so loose and so disrespectful the day before the game that in my head, I'm like, yo, I don't know what's about to happen. We went in there and gave Notre Dame their worst home loss in history. And we had every opportunity to give them their worst ever loss. But Bobby Bowden is such a stickler for tradition and history that he didn't want to go down. Like he didn't want to disrespect Notre Dame, because we whooped that ass early and often. And I think I got to go find the video. I know I have it somewhere. I may upload it so we can give some preview. But me and Lorenzo Booker were talking, because they called us soft. And I think I had six guys get carted off that game personally. Like, we was whooping ass, but we was banging. It was a very physical game. Like, you ever just whoop somebody's ass so good? And maybe that doesn't happen because y'all are normal people and I love y'all. But we was getting in. We was getting in that. Like, we whooped that ass good. So on that note, appreciate you guys for chopping it up with me. And look, Friday I'll be back in the States. We'll have some really good BS at the lounge, and we'll have a good show. But again, check out me with Crefonzo Thorpe moving forward. And if there are any other known legends you guys want to hear from, let me know. I got to get Big Fo back on, and quite a few other guys. I'm trying to get Pete up. So Oh, shout out to my guy Matt Larson. One more time, we'll talk about the tailgate. FSU golfer, he's get put $5 donation. The originator for the tailgates will be there for 420. So we'll have the jambalaya sides, we'll have Freddie's ribs, we'll have a whole bunch of other different things going on. So if you ain't bought your tailgate ticket, man, you crazy. We're gonna have some good food, good liquor, good times, man. So again, appreciate y'all for chopping up with me. We'll see you guys next time.